Gentlemen, the time has come once again to discuss things.
Speaking of, hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. I'm Sid Part 2, joining me today is...
I'm that Matt kid.
Geek for fun.
And I'm the doctor.
Yes, you are. This is the multi-doctor crossover that you always wanted. The one where 3 out of the 4 doctors are Americans.
We're all just playing 8.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. So yeah, we're continuing our multi-doctor saga here on Geeky Gentlemen, and we're almost at the end, which both feels like it's been a long time coming and still like, damn, really, that's all there is. Just it's surprising,
Well,
you know, in a way.
No, it does not feel like the other thing.
No, it does.
It feels like a long time.
No, I don't know. It's like when we started this, I was surprised there were so few. I thought that Classic Who did it at least 1 or 2 more times. And it is kind of a marvel that Modern Who has really only done, like, 2 true ones. Like, we did Time Crash last week, but, like, it's a short, you know? So this is, like, the new Who first, like, full-on commit, dive into it, do a full-on multi-doctor story. And that is Day of the Doctor, the 50th anniversary, starring Matt Smith, David Tennant, and John Hurt as the surprise mystery war doctor. Before this, there was the special, The Name of the Doctor. No, not special, that was the season finale. Name of the Doctor.
It's, the Night of the Doctor is the special with 8, where he regenerates. Day of the Doctor is this one. Name of the Doctor is the finale, and Time of the Doctor is where Matt Smith turns into Cabal.
Yep, so it is really interesting that it all kind of coalesces together, that, you know, you have Matt Smith's final episode just after this, with the Christmas special, but what I was getting to is, so the previous episode before this, there's like this whole thing with the Doctor's timeline, and we meet the mysterious war doctor, John Hurt, the doctor that the Doctor doesn't talk about, the one that he never even called himself the Doctor back then. And it was the Doctor during the infamous Time War that had been built up and talked about so much ever since New Who came back. And so this was but like a huge, like, reveal at the time. And so, really, like, Matt was curious, like, what is going on with the War Doctor? What's up with John Hurt? And, like, this is it. This is all of it. Like, you missed, like, 10 seconds of him on screen before this. That's it. That's all there is. So this is kind of a big deal, and it's an attempt to do just a multi-doctor story. It is, I think, fair to say the most ambitious out of all of these, because it's not just, like, some random bullshit. It, like, actually is trying to tie in and settle, like, some big event in the show and, like, be a big continuity point for the series, whereas everything else was just, like, kind of, you know, oh, this thing happened. I don't know, it's an interesting little foray, for sure. It's very, you know, kind of big production for BBC at the time. This was even released in theaters in 3D, because it was 2013 and that's what we were doing. And yeah, it's a whole fucking thing. I don't know, who wants to start? Where do we want to go on this one?
I guess we should just go one by one. Yeah.
I guess I'll start because I had to ask a question to. I guess Matt doesn't need to answer this because I probably don't have his answer. But did you two were you two watching Doctor Who when this came out, or were you watching Doctor Who after this?
I was watching Doctor Who when this came out. Series 7 was the first time I ever got, like, current with the show.
Yeah, I watched all of Matt Smith's episodes as they aired through his whole tenure, and I basically gave up after like the first 2 or 3 episodes of Capaldi. So I did watch this when it came out.
Okay, because that's something that I think is really kind of special for it. And we do a lot of kind of anniversary things with other franchises, and we had the big No Way Home Spider-Man thing, but I think it's really hard to go back to this era. Me and Steve will kind of talk about this a little bit off camera, but it's a case of everyone wants to talk about like the hype to Endgame and the thing like that, but there was just something in the air with the 50th and like the Doctor Who doing something this big. It was so secretive, like no one knew what was going to happen or what was going to be, that it's probably the first and only time Doctor Who transcended its EBC cult show that's kind of popular in the States and can go to Comic-Con, and really became like a cultural zeitgeist for just a couple days. And like it wasn't long, and it dropped off pretty quick afterwards. But this right here is definitely the peak of Doctor Who in many ways, in terms of just exposing itself to the world and being as Doctor Who-y as possible, and the amount of stress that caused the production team, the amount of things they had to do with the actors and who knew they wouldn't come back, I think. And judging the 50th, I think as well, like when you go back to it, it's never going to quite capture that first watch with the hype anticipated by it, and I think that's intentional, and I think that's something to kind of praise it when we talk about these things as being events. A lot of these things aren't events. They just like to get hyped as one. 50th anniversary was a event.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like, I remember all the speculation going on at the time, because we just got that little pic of John Hurt. We didn't even know that he was, like, the Doctor during the Time War when he first showed up at the end of Series 7. It's, like, I remember people like, oh, maybe it's the Valyard. Of all things. It was, like, a big deal. There was a lot of press around this at the time. It was... And like, the crazy thing was... in the preparation for the release is when Matt Smith revealed that he was going to be leaving Doctor Who. So there was even people wondering if, like, oh shit, is the Doctor going to die in the special? And no, it was the very next episode. So it's pretty cuckoo crazy that it got as big as it did. Cool.
Well, alright, I guess we'll just, now that I've done the little boring fucking, this was when Doctor Who was cool, sad Alfie fucking thing, because it's never gonna get back here again until the fucking 100.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay, Alfie. Doctor Who was never cool.
This is true, but we all got to pretend for a little bit. That's what makes it.
Well, I mean, I guess the question I want to ask is, Matt, since you'd watched like Doctor Who up till Matt Smith, and then like this was coming out, do you remember like the buzz around this at all?
Oh, for sure, yeah. Because I have friends who like Doctor Who. I mean, not just you guys. I had friends at the time who liked Doctor Who. So like, yeah, I definitely remember this. I definitely remember like seeing images of John Hurt and everyone being like, what the fuck is happening? Oh my god. And yeah, I remember the hype for it. And it I mean, I just didn't care, so I didn't look into it, but like for sure I do remember this seeming like it was like a big deal. And having now watched it, I can definitely see why it was built up that way, because it feels like it when you watch it.
I mean, yeah, the scale they go to for not necessarily the whole thing. A lot of it ends up just taking place like in rooms, the way Doctor Who tends to. But like the scale of what we see on Gallifrey and like just the opening shots of like helicoptering the TARDIS into London and stuff like that. They do a pretty good job of like really, you know, showing off the budget a little bit more than Doctor Who usually is able to.
For sure.
How about you, Steve? What are your thoughts on the hype around it, I guess?
I was definitely like in the swell of it. I was really really excited for this, because it was cool that Matt Smith was like my first Doctor on an ongoing basis, and I'd seen the previous series prior to this, so like getting a crossover event in 2013, that was definitely a much bigger deal than it is now, right? Like, I think you can. There's definitely a point in time where bringing back a bunch of old actors to reprise their roles together in a multi-timeline, multiversal kind of story was a lot more ambitious than it's become now. And Doctor Who, as always, is kind of on the forefront of doing cool pop culture geeky things, and it's been doing this for years, but it's been a while since we've like had a true one. So going from all the way back to the Two Doctors, which was the real last one we did, up through this, it's a pretty massive deal to have them all back. I was following the production pretty heavily. I remember Christopher Eccleston coming out and talking about how he declined to come back because of how the BBC treated him. I've like kept up with some of the stuff about like all the interviews Tennant and Smith were doing in the lead up to it, and the first like big promo still of you got of them together. So I was hyped for it. I'd seen it a few times, and I watched it just for fun, maybe a week or two before you decided to do this multi-Doctor review series.
Oh, no.
So it was already kind of fresh in my mind.
That's funny. Sorry.
It wasn't even for any particular reason. It's just the YouTube algorithm one day was like, hey, you remember that scene with 10 and 11 yelling at each other in the prison? You should watch that scene. So I did, and then I ended up watching the whole episode.
Yeah. I don't know, there's something to this one. I do think that it is, we'll get to Twice Upon a Time, but I'll, as much as I like to shit on Stephen Moffat, mostly for the memes, I will give him credit. He objectively writes the best of these. Like, it is a competition between this and Twice Upon a Time for which of these multi-Doctor stories are actually good. Like, I still have my problems with this one, and we'll get into it. Especially as like a 10 fan, I'm like particularly nitpicky about that. But like, outside of that, just like as a piece, I think this is actually quite good. It does a lot of like really fun, inventive time travel stuff. Moffat kind of goes back to his playbook that he always likes to do when he gets his like it's in the room reveal. He loves that trick so fucking much. He should just write fucking horror movies, and not like good ones. But, just, he fucking loves those tricks and stuff, and he gets a lot of mileage out of it, and it is quite fun to see him pay off some stuff. Like I said, I was watching Doctor Who continuity clips, and someone took all the Queen Elizabeth scenes with this one, and then cut back to a Tennant episode where he's hanging out with Shakespeare, and the Queen shows up, and she sees the Doctor, and she's, like, clearly much older than she is here, and she's like, Doctor! Off with his head! So it's funny to see that all come full circle, as it were. So I don't know. It's a really good, fun special, and it does some interesting things, and again, some things that I don't particularly care for. I don't think I'll ever forgive it for kind of not necessarily rewriting, but like almost up to ignoring David Tennant's last two episodes for the End of Time special. That's something that still kind of bugs the crap out of me. But overall, yeah, I do quite enjoy this, especially as a whole when considered with other multi-Doctor stories. It is truly head and shoulders above the rest, unfortunately. Matt, what'd you think?
Yeah, I really enjoyed this a lot, honestly. And I mean, bear in mind that's obviously coming off the, just hot steaming shit of the last multi-Doctor stories. So it's kind of hard not to come out of this and just be like, wow, that was Martin Scorsese cinema. But no, this was cool, and like watching it as someone who has watched Eccleston and Tennant, albeit years ago. It was cool to see, Bad Wolf and fucking Rose Tyler show up again, and she's fucking great in this. I really enjoyed her. This does the thing that multi-doctor stories should do, which is just let the doctors be together and just play off of each other more, because that's a good chunk of this, is just them bouncing their kind of fucking witty dialogue off each other, but also having like legitimate tension there between them, which I thought was really, really cool. Like the way that they kind of feel about the time when they were the War Doctor and all that stuff, and everything about Matt Smith's doctor, trying to forget what he had done and all that good stuff. So no, I really liked this. I was pretty much on board with everything this was doing. I don't really have a lot of like context for what's going on with Smith, so when like I don't really know what's going on with like Clara and all that, but
I mean, she's just the companion at this point. Like her big story arc from season 7 had pretty much been wrapped up in the last episode, and like she gets other stuff to do as the series go on, but she is not like cosmically important anymore.
Okay, gotcha. But yeah, I mean, I did like this. I like, because, Doctor Who, at least in what I've seen, he's, the Doctor's always trying to save the day, and getting that moment where they say, we're going to help you do this on the day where there was no, fucking right answer. There was no correct thing to do, and that's awful. I like that a lot. You're putting the Doctor in this, like, no-win scenario and seeing how he's reacted to that. I'm just kind of confused because I thought that Eccleston was the one who did this, but I guess not, so...
He is, but for casting purposes, he isn't anymore.
Well, okay, see, that's not, like, technically the case, because... And this is the hilarious part, because it's, like, such a blink-and-you-miss-it moment in Eccleston's first episode. He goes into Rose's apartment, and he's, like, got the fucking plastic arm from the mannequin still, right? And very briefly, he looks at a mirror and goes, not bad.
Okay. No, so here's the thing about that. That is something you can go back in after you realize the War Doctor has been retconned in. It is not what they were intending all the way through his tenure up to this point.
No, that is actually not true, because that is his first episode, so it is him reacting to this new face.
I don't know if I buy that. If anything, either 8 was the War Doctor or 9 was the War Doctor.
Yeah.
But the War Doctor as a concept is purely a retcon.
Certainly, I agree. I'm just saying that Eccleston in Rose is... Like, they wrote it, at least at the time, as if that is truly his first adventure, and with that face, as if he is freshly regenerated.
I don't know if the rest of that series plays that way, though.
I mean, you might be right, but I'm just saying the very first episode. I mean, but he's like, it's so fresh for him, it would be the argument. Because it's not like it's like, oh, I regenerated, now I don't remember any of the things I did. It's like, it's all still pretty fresh for him, would be my argument. But that's neither here nor there. It's really funny. I found that interview clip of Eccleston talking about, it's like, oh yeah, I read the 50th anniversary script and it got a lot better when I said, no, I'm not going to do it.
He is very, very salty, justifiably.
I mean, I don't even understand, like, what happened with him, because he never goes into detail. I just don't know what that dude's like.
He's not allowed to. So basically, as far as I know, what happened is the production for Series 1 on the reboot was really, really hell. He quit, and the BBC basically put out a statement that I don't know how malicious it was supposed to be, but it was something like he quit because they like made like a sarcastic comment about like the show being too much for him, and he took that really personally and threatened to take them to court over it. And part of the reason he didn't come back for this is he said he didn't think it did the Ninth Doctor justice. But he also said he wanted the BBC to apologize, and that he promised them that he wouldn't talk about the production after it was over because of how hellish it was. But then they threw him under the bus, and so now he feels like he should be able to talk about all the shit he went through. But I don't know, like, how much of that is just him being overly critical or how much of it is true, because I don't know that much about the production of Series 1.
Yeah, no, neither do I. It's like, anytime I hear him talk about it, he's always like so vague, and I'm just like, man, what the fuck did they do? Like, I don't doubt it. I just
it seems like it was not fun. He probably signed an NDA, honestly.
Probably, I don't fucking know. So yeah, the Ninth Doctor stuff and like the War Doctor, it's all like this weird continuity thing, and I think ultimately it just comes down to Moffat kind of doing the best with what he had. I have always been like fairly critical of this, but the more I found out about the behind the scenes things, I am shocked it is as like put together as it is. I'm shocked that it is as watchable and as functional a story as it is. Because Moffat was, of course, working on Sherlock at the time of this, and just the lack of fucking support he got from BBC during it, even though it was a huge thing, because BBC doesn't know what the fuck they're doing ever, is very, very impressive.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, like, divorcing it from that, I do really like the idea of the War Doctor. He's so, like, John Hurt, incredible actor, and he does an amazing job playing someone who's just so resigned to doing what he has to do that he doesn't even consider himself to be the Doctor anymore. And I actually thought that was really, really cool and really, really interesting. So, like, if I just ignore the weird continuity stuff, which is easy for me to do because I don't care, and I think it actually works really, really well. And I think the back and forth he has with the other Doctors is a lot of fun. It reminds me of those earlier Doctor specials, multi-Doctor specials, where he's just complaining that they're too fucking bubbly and shit. And honestly, I feel that. I'm kind of right there with him sometimes. I think timey-wimey gets overused to shit, so it was very fun to watch that.
No, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good crossover. I really like it in terms of just being like a solid episode, and as part two of like the 3-episode trilogy that ends off Matt Smith's tenure, and how the Time Lords and what happened on Gallifrey during the Time War is such a key part of all 3 of those episodes. I think it's generally pretty good. I don't like the retcon of the War Doctor, but it is such a thing. It's such a massive production kind of thing where like it's hard to criticize, because if Moffat had his way, it would not be done that way, I'd imagine. But it's just trying to juggle this massive endeavor that you're going to inevitably make compromises. And John Hurt does a good job. There are moments here and there of like referencey stuff I don't love. I don't think we needed to bring Rose back, honestly. I know why we did, like because of how popular she is. I didn't think we really needed to bring her back, especially if she wasn't going to interact with 9 or 10 very much at all.
Well, I don't know. I kind of thought that worked as like a way to just bring the actress back, but have her play someone completely different. I thought that was
that's the thing. That's exactly it. Is it's a way to bring the actress back, but not necessary for what was happening. And I get why they did it as like a fan service thing. I just would prefer if they didn't.
Yeah.
Steve, it's one of the handful of Doctor Who characters I know, and I felt serviced by it.
No, that's fair. I like
that was my glup shitto moment in Doctor Who.
I like everything about 11 in this. I don't love 10 as much as most people, so I get the criticisms of his portrayal here, but I like that everything was kind of in service to 11's arc up to this point. Also, Series 7 is so back and forth and so boring sometimes. When you finally get something that like stands out and is good, I'm just genuinely excited about it.
Damn. See, I like Series 7. I don't know.
It's very, very back and forth. It's like one episode's amazing, and the next episode is boring as shit. But the end of Matt Smith's run from Name of the Doctor, Time of the Doctor, and Day of the Doctor, I think all 3 of those episodes are great.
Okay, fair enough. I guess so. It's been brought up a couple times, so I'll talk about it. So yeah, my problem with like this is almost entirely like around David Tennant. And like maybe it is because I'm just too much of a stan, but it is, I feel, worth having a conversation around. So the first thing that like really kind of bugs me about this one is he doesn't like do anything in this. Like all of the other doctors get like a moment. Matt Smith gets the moment to say, no, we're not going to push the button this time. John Hurt gets the moment to like come up with the idea for the screwdrivers, which is what ends up saving Gallifrey in the long run. David Tennant's just kind of there to be like hilarious, and he's good at that. He's amazing at that, of course. But like he doesn't actively contribute to the plot in any meaningful way. He really is just like present, and that kind of like hurts me just a little bit. He doesn't like get much to do in service to the story. He's there to be kind of like one of the voices on the shoulder kind of vibe, but he doesn't like as a character get to contribute, and that kind of bugs me. He is very much First Doctor in the little bubble in this.
What I think is really funny about that is, again, it's rare you can get something like this where it is so easy to, like, there's a production story behind that, which is so funny. But, like, so Moffat wrote the script, and then David Tennant came up to him and said, hey, so I'm just kind of like comic relief here. Like, do I get to do something? And then Matt Moffat was like, oh yeah, okay, no problem. And he goes to Matt Smith, and Matt Smith says, oh, you've given David all the jokes. What can I get on the joke? And then Moffat's like, all right, do you want to swap? Like, what? And he's like, no, it's fine. He's like, what the fuck do you want me to do? Like, so he like Moffat heard the thing. He was like, okay, yeah, sure, fine. Do you want them? Like, which one of you wants to be the funny one, and which wants to do it? Like, what do you want? And then they both just decided, oh no, it's fine, I'll do it. I don't want to swap with him. So it's just like, then fucking don't bring it up. Like, it's so funny how just of a shit show this whole thing is. Even that point, like, this wasn't a. It's just kind of how it worked, because you're right in the draft of the script. And I imagine in the first. Because this script was written before they found out Eccleston wasn't coming back. Mm-hmm. There is a version of Day of the Doctor that has the Ninth Doctor in it.
Man, I'd really like to read all the drafts of the 50th anniversary so badly.
There was a fucking draft of the 50th, because the very first thing they found out, the only one that was contracted to come back for this was Clara. Not even that was contracted to come back for this. So Moffat's like, BBC, who have I got? And they said, you've got Jenna Coleman. Anyone else is like, no, we don't know yet. So what do you mean this is the 50th anniversary of the show, and all I know for sure I've got is Jenna. And I like Jenna, but I need a little more.
This is about to be Dimensions in Time all over again.
Literally the first draft of this.
That's too many doctors, Steve. This is about to be like a fucking Big Finish, like Torchwood meets River Song crossover episode.
Yeah, so the first draft of the 50th was just Clara going through the Doctor, a universe where the Doctor never existed because he got like wiped from existence or something. And then there's these other like stories of it was basically been the episode with Matt Smith, like Amy has to bring back the Doctor, but like played out over an entire episode. That's a draft that Moffat said, like, I hated it, it was shit, but I had to write it because that's all I knew I'd get, and I needed to make sure I had something in time. And he did the one with Eccleston and stuff, and then Eccleston dropped out, so that the whole which Doctor gets to do stuff, I think probably changed like 5 fucking different times over the course of this, and David Tennant just ended up look at the drawing the short straw. So I definitely think you're right, Ian. I definitely think there is a thing that everyone else gets like the moment, except even the moment gets the moment. except for David Tennant. I'm also kind of like, he's still David Tennant. He's so big and he's so larger than life. He is his presence alone, especially even back then, it wasn't too recent, but he was in everyone's mind still the Doctor, even with Matt Smith and everything. Like, just David Tennant being in a room for a lot of casual Doctor Who fans specifically is just, it's like if Christopher Reeve showed up in like a fucking Man of Steel. Like, it's just it draws all the focus. It's if Bela Lugosi showed up as Dracula. Like, that is the guy.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't... If anyone's gonna get less shit, I think it's fine for him because the gravity around him is so big. You don't really notice it until you're, like you say, Ian, like a big Tennant fan, and then you kind of pick it apart. If it was Smith, I think it'd be a lot more egregious because that's underselling the Doctor that's about to have a sad farewell.
Well, I mean, I
Like,
could
next
agree with that.
episode.
Like, I wouldn't want it to be Smith gets nothing to do in service of the other guys, because then you end up with, like, the 5 Doctors, right? Where, like, Davidson is off solving the most obvious mystery of all time, while everyone else does the quote-unquote cool stuff. We're all just gonna collectively agree all that stuff the other Doctors was doing was cool. Okay, cool. Glad we had this talk. But, like, you know, that you end up neutering the current Doctor, and I'm fine with it being, you know, Smith's story, Eleven's story. I think that makes the most sense, that this is the story to push him the hardest, and in, like, introducing a whole fucking new Doctor, it would be kind of egregious not to give that guy a lot of the focus, right? Because, like, this is all we have with John Hurt. Big Finish, like, started making a couple stories, and then that petered out because John Hurt fucking died. So, you know, this is it. This is all of John Hurt's canon. If you want to be a John Hurt completionist, you have very little work to do. But, you know, it's just that, like, you sit there as a fan, and, you know, to your point, Alfie, like, David Tennant made the, like, the Doctor, especially at this point in time, is still the Doctor for a lot of people, and that's, like, you know, he fucking earned it. He was around on the show while it was at its peak, and he was, you know, putting in all the work for it. I think the thing that just kind of makes this an interesting conversation is how much can you say the behind the scenes things and details of a production just don't matter, and you just have to look at the piece. You know, like,
I think that's basically all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, again, is when this comes out, this is going out in theaters, it's being published as the biggest Doctor Who thing ever, and it's, as much of a nerd as I am, it's not coming with a 10 minutes before credit special about Alfie Taylor sucking Moffat's dick and being like, but wait, guys, if there's some iffy stuff, don't worry. This used to just be a Clara special. Like, you know, like, that maybe would have made it better, but they didn't do that. So, like,
Stephen Moffat just doing, like, the beginning of the YouTube What If, where it's, like, just spending way too much time talking about the premise as opposed to just getting into the fucking story. Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, like, that's... You don't do that when you make a movie or a piece of television, and the majority of people watching it don't care. And if your work is justified by people consuming it having sympathy for how hard it was to do, no, you shouldn't be a fucking writer, because that's literally the job. That's just, you can have sympathy, you can understand, and I find the stories fascinating. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, even Moffat wouldn't want anyone going easy on him because of it, and I don't think it's fair to any creative to do that. So it's fun to talk about, but at the end of the day, the flaws are the flaws.
Yeah, and so, like, I'm curious with Matt, like, your opinion on all this stuff with David Tennant's role in the thing, since he's the Doctor you have the most exposure with.
I mean, like, yeah, for sure. I'm hearing you there. Like, when it comes to the things that save the day, it is primarily we're dealing with Matt Smith and we're dealing with the War Doctor. But at the same time, this just strikes me as their story more than it's anyone else's. I mean, this is the War Doctor who is the one who had to do this thing, and Matt Smith's Doctor is played up as the Doctor who's trying to forget, who's trying to move on, who's trying to not live with what he did. Tennant is just sort of kind of in between the two, and I think he does a good job of keeping the tension between everyone and just bouncing the dialogue off everyone and stuff like that. I don't really feel like him not contributing meaningfully to the story is... It doesn't bother me, really, because I just enjoy his performance, and I'm just happy to see him again. It doesn't really bother me because I just go into this going like, yeah, this is not really Tennant's story. This is Smith's story, and it's obviously going to be the story of the new guy. So, I mean, yeah, I can definitely understand the criticism, but it doesn't really bother me.
Yeah.
I'm an Eccleston fan, anyways.
Yeah. Well, it's
I also
amusing.
feel like
Go ahead.
I also feel like there's a little bit of like Eleven's story is so big through all 3 series that he's in, and when you get to this crossover, it's legitimately kind of incomprehensible in certain scenes if you don't know what he's dealing with, because it's just so continuity heavy, and you just kind of have to like go with it if you don't know the background. And if there's like a core thesis to Matt Smith's Doctor, it's kind of the same from series 5, 6, and 7 all the way through, which Moffat kind of buries into the ground by the end, which is that eternal question, Doctor Who? And as annoying as that line can be as it's constantly repeated, I think there's a case to be made that Smith's version of the Doctor doesn't really know who he is anymore at any given point. He's always kind of figuring it out. And his final speech in Time of the Doctor is just a capstone on figuring yourself out through your entire life. And he never entirely stops. And so every like big moment for him is kind of reconciled around what his reputation is, how people perceive him, who he wants to be. And having this 50th anniversary moment, you have him not wanting to admit a part of himself exists, which is the War Doctor, and those two kind of going back and forth. I think, like you put it earlier, having Tennant kind of sandwiched in the middle as just another devil on his shoulder is just a good device, because Matt Smith's story is about acknowledging all the other parts of himself. And what better way to do that than to have the Doctor that everyone universally recognizes as just the Doctor. Like, to this day, when there were generic Doctor Who news announcements, they still post pictures of Tennant.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter if there's another Doctor related to it. Even when Smith's era was going on, I used to see articles published about new Doctor Who episodes with fucking David Tennant poster art.
That's amazing.
Like, it makes sense that, like, Tennant is the only one that doesn't have to do anything, because Tennant's arc is so kind of perfectly encapsulated, and Matt Smith's kind of isn't. I feel like Matt Smith has more of an identity crisis than Tennant ever did.
I mean, I think that's fair. It's one of those things that has always kind of irked me and been a problem for me. It's one of those things where, like, I've kind of lived with it and accepted it, and it doesn't bug me as much as it used to, but it is something that I've always noticed. And I guess the thing that makes it particularly funny to me is they both kind of like crash his adventure is the part that's like really amusing. Like, you could just take like if you shot more scenes, or if there's like B-roll sitting around, right? Like, you could just take this and like, you know, sneak it into the fucking HBO Max queue as like a regular episode with David Tennant, one of the specials of like, here he is with Queen Elizabeth and the Zygons, and boom, this fucking guy shows up. He's a future Doctor. Like, it would kind of work. But it's just funny that he is the most, like, non-active, which, again, isn't a inherent problem. It works well enough, I feel, within the confines of it, but it is something that's always kind of stood out and bothered me, and I just, again, I guess I kind of just wanted a moment, and to kind of wrap it into my wider thing with it, about what does bother me as a Tennant fan, first and foremost, is I can kind of live with the role he has. He's not as active, but again, it isn't his story. He is there to lend perspective to the other two Doctors. And, like, he gets some great moments, like, you know, kind of telling him off, and that's pretty good. But, like, I think the thing that's still fundamentally bothers me the most about this, and still has since the very first time I saw it, is, like, the act of saving Gallifrey as a wholly good thing has never not bugged me. Oh yeah, because the previous big revelation we got about Gallifrey and the Time War, and it's not like it's like it got forgotten by this point, because like it's the big thing going on with the Paul McGann short Night of the Doctor with his regeneration into the War Doctor, is he boards a ship to try to save someone. The person finds out it's a TARDIS and decides, no, I'd rather crash the ship and kill both of us than get inside that fucking machine with you because your people have, like, damn near destroyed the universe. And it's like, holy fuck, that's scary. That's like, the Time Lords in the Time War are supposed to be terrifying and have become just as bad as the Daleks. The last time we saw the Time Lords in continuity is David Tennant's Regeneration episode, The End of Time, in which fucking Rassilon's there and he's like, we're gonna destroy the universe and ascend as celestial beings. And, like, in all fairness, that gets a mention here, but, like, it's not, like, resolved. Like, there's no point at which the saving of Gallifrey in this is reconciled with the fact that the Time Lords had been planning universal genocide. Like, there was no recognition of, yeah, but they're not going to do that anymore.
I was totally confused by that because I wouldn't, like, my takeaway, having not watched any Doctor Who that deals with this in, like, years, I just assumed that it was the two sides of this conflict. This conflict is going to go on forever, and it will destroy everyone else in the crossfire. I did not realize that the Time Lords were legitimately fucking evil.
Yeah, but that was the big, like, I guess not reveal, because it's talked about and it's alluded to and stuff with Eccleston, with Tennant, but, like, the final thing of Tennant, like, one of my favorite David Tennant scenes is in The End of Time, when Wilfred tries to get him to take a gun to, like, help fight and defend himself and, you know, try to save his life. And he's like, he refuses. He's like, nah, I never would. Not me. And then it's like, the Time Lords are coming back, and he just fucking grabs the gun. Like, it's such a good fucking moment to me. And, like, it's framed as the Time Lords truly did become as evil as the Daleks. That's, like, the threat of the end of time. And I know a lot of people have problems with that, but that doesn't fucking matter. It's still as far as from a continuity side of things, from a this is solving the Time War side of things, this is a big fucking deal. And so the saving of Gallifrey framed as a wholly good act has always fucking irked me from that perspective.
My thing on it, and I guess the argument I'll do it for, is the whole story is kind of about that. Like, it's about Tennant and the War Doctor and Smith. They do all the thing the Doctor always does. They're going through every possibility. Tennant has counted every single child on Gallifrey. They've overcomplicated it because it's such a complex situation, and in doing that, they've lost who they fucking are, and that is they are the Doctor, and they save people, and it's as simple as that. So, like, yes, it is a more complex situation, but at the same time, it's really not, because there's kids that are going to die, and so, of course, the Doctor's move should be to save them. Like, and the whole planet's the only way to do it. It's not you can just only specifically say that, so, I don't know, I feel like that... If you added any things with it of, like, the Doctor, like, oh, well, now I have to make sure I can stop the Time Lords after this, or it ruins the purity of the sentiment about what the show is about and what the Doctor as a protagonist is about and why he's different from other, like, fictional protagonists who solve their problems with primarily bloodshed or as fighters and stuff. And it's kind of the New Who show had to bring the Doctor closer to that. Always been that a little bit in, like, the classic things, like me and Ian talked about, like how much the Sixth Doctor fucking takes someone out like he isn't a James Bond guy. There's always been that kind of, like, ruthlessness to the Doctor, but it wasn't until you got to New Who where it became, like, a selling point, where it became, like, because that's what Russell T Davies had to do to make the Doctor cool again for people, is he had to make him a badass and the oncoming storm. And I feel like a lot of what Moffat's doing here is kind of bringing him back to that simple idea of a healer and a someone, like, 'cause they even parody the fucking oncoming, like they have Tennant do his big fucking famous stand in front of something, make a speech, where it's just a rabbit. I think that's very intentional. Kind of the thesis of the thing is that's all cool in the moment, and Moffat is even more guilty of doing that than
Davies.
Davies was. Yeah, but I think it is that if this is the fifth, if you're going to show someone Doctor Who, and this is going to be so many people's first exposure of Doctor Who, you need to end this arc with just a complete assessment that when it comes down to it, in the most possible situation, the true act of the Doctor will always be to save life. And so, like, I get what you're saying, and I think you maybe could do another draft of this where you resolve that a little bit.
I mean,
better.
maybe if you give David Tennant something to do and like he solves that side of things, that would just throw ideas.
Maybe whatever. Like maybe you have a line about like, well, what are we gonna do about the High Council? And David Tennant says, "Oh, don't worry, I'll take care of them," and you lead into the end of time thing. Maybe something like that. I don't know.
I don't know.
But I feel like, again, that the thesis of it's not like it's ignoring it, because even start with the War Doctor condemning both Gallifrey and the Daleks.
And
Gallifrey's shit isn't ignored here. I think it's just...
It's not. It's just that it's such a... It is framed as such an absolute, like, good act, but it is... It goes out of its way to mention all the bad they're doing and to acknowledge the previous crop up of them, and it doesn't do anything in and of itself to resolve that. And you know, this is outside of just the special itself, so I won't talk about this too long. And that is compounded by Time of the Doctor, when like there's that whole section. It's like, if Gallifrey returns, the Time Lords, or if Gallifrey returns, the Time Lord will return with it. The Time Lords will return in peace. How the fuck do you know, man? Like, what are you talking about? It's such a funny little like, I don't know if like continuity problem is the right word for it, because it's not like it forgot. Continuity problems usually come from forgetting or directly contradicting. It's fully acknowledging it, it just doesn't do anything to resolve it, and so it leaves like this really weird impression, and it's something that has always bugged me. It's like, it's not that I want him to have destroyed Gallifrey still. I do actually quite like the very meta-textual thing of, okay, I've put the Doctor in a room with a button, and if he presses it, he ends the Time War. And I just can't make him fucking press that button. Is like a really cool and really fun and beautiful scene. It's a great way to do it. I don't really even have a problem as much anymore with Matt Smith being the one that that decides, no, we're not doing this. I think that is a really good and believable arc for him. That scene in particular used to bug me a lot more than it does now. Again, my thing is just that, like, it is weird to not resolve that thread that, like, the entire thing is premised upon.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but because of the existence of the War Doctor, is 11 not the last of the first regeneration cycle now?
Yeah, that's like the big reveal or big thing of Time of the Doctor, is he should be out of regenerations.
Right, and at the end, when he thinks he's going to die for real on Trenzalore, they give him a new cycle, and Capaldi's the first of the new cycle, right?
Yes.
Right.
Okay, alright, so from that perspective, knowing that you're not getting 9 back, knowing that you're shoving in another Doctor in between 8 and 9 that's going to be the War Doctor, that fundamentally changes Matt Smith's trajectory as the 11th Doctor, because now he's not really the 11th Doctor. I think it's actually kind of a cool testament to being forced in a box allows you to be more creative, but at the same time, you can see a very natural progression, because Matt Smith's episodes very much do play like he's the last regeneration in the cycle, even though he wasn't by that point. Mm-hmm. And when you get here, giving him, of all Doctors, the chance to save Gallifrey and being the last one, I think actually does really hit, because he knows he's the last one in that context, that he blocked out of his mind the person that put him in this position, and that the last thing he can do as the last as the last version of the Doctor and the last Time Lord is that in his final life he brings them all back. I think that's actually really, really nice. I get what you're saying about the Time Lords. I actually agree with that. I think they do kind of like take the teeth out of them and make them a little bit more fairy tale, especially in Time of the Doctor, where they just kind of benevolently, Christmassy give them a new cycle. But I think Moffat's 11 stories have kind of lent themselves to that framing for a while now. And 5 and 6 especially have a much more heavy leaning on like fantasy and fairy tales as a motif and as a structure for the way the stories go. And so giving him like a more happy and less morally gray ending in this moment, I think is more earned than it has been in previous instances where we've done the same thing with him.
Yeah, and again, it wouldn't bother me so much if there was just something to acknowledge it. So it's the fact that it's kind of swept under the rug here, and then it seems almost completely forgotten by the time we get to Time of the Doctor. What's the episode after Heaven Sent, Alfie? Hellbent. Kind of sort of acknowledges it, but not really, in that Rassilon is president by the time you get to that Capaldi episode, so like it kind of deals with it. They really should have gotten Timothy Dalton back for it, though. It would have made it cooler. So I don't know, it's a weird thing, and I don't think that anything is ever really going to be said that's not gonna that's gonna kind of square the circle for me and make me okay with it. I think it is just a fundamental weakness of the piece, that it doesn't deal with that. Though, that being said, we've been talking about this for a very long time, so we should probably talk about some of the other stuff in the special. How'd you guys like the Zygon subplot?
I thought it was fun.
Yeah?
I thought that was fun. I like that there is like a continuity history with Queen Elizabeth and the Doctor, and that there is kind of a sequence of events where all this stuff is supposed to go. And meeting 10 in that first moment, where like he's not sure which one is which, I think is actually a very fun instance. And it's a cute way to reintroduce 10 as well, is to just kind of throw him in a situation like that. That could very easily have just been an episode for him. So I thought that was fun. I like that. The fourth Doctor has said this about coming back for the 5 Doctors, about how he didn't want to play 20% of a Doctor. And I think that's a justifiable reason to not come back. And I think that that's definitely something about that happens with Tennant here, where he is just kind of playing 33.3 repeating percent of a Doctor. But unlike the 5 Doctors, and unlike the 3 Doctors, his little cul-de-sac and the stuff that ends up happening with the Zygons feels like a fun thing to do, and it's actually fun to watch. So I don't know, maybe in the 70s, if I was watching the anniversary special and I got to see an old Doctor doing a fun Doctor plot, I would have enjoyed it more. And that's why I ended up liking the Zygon stuff in this, and maybe in 20 years it will not age well. But I really liked it. I thought it was fun.
Yeah, no, I quite like it a lot too. I love the... It's very on the nose, but I do love the way that it parallels kind of the Time War situation, the moment situation, and how it kind of teaches John Hurt or the wrong lesson that, oh, I'll be a better man because of this, is really fascinating. I do really, really like the moment where literally 10 and 11 become the exact same person. Like there is no distinction between those two characters in that moment when they're in the room with the Zygons and the humans, and they force them to negotiate a peace treaty kind of thing. I thought that was all really, really great stuff. It's just
It was also fun getting Kate Stewart back in that moment.
Well, yeah, it was something else.
The episode where you find out that the Brigadier General had actually died, and then like an episode or two later realizing that he had a daughter and she just kind of hangs out with 11 now and has been in a few episodes. I kind of dig that.
Yeah, it's a little forced in some ways, but I do like it in the end, and they do more with her and Capaldi later on, so that's cool. I was going somewhere and I forget. I just like the like peace treaty negotiation premise. I thought that was just a really fun, cool idea, and how it's seated. Also, the Black Archive joke where it's like, hey, how you doing? Oh, pretty good. It's my first day. Been here 10 years. Was very, very funny. You were gonna say, Matt?
Oh yeah, I just I'm very confused as to what they. I mean, it's a very small thing, so it's not a big deal. I'm just confused as to what treaty are you going to negotiate between people and then just people who want to invade and take over your planet? Like, I'm just very confused about that. But whatever, that's fine. No, I thought a lot of that was really, really fun. Like, at first, I kind of felt like the Zygons were just kind of there as a B plot to introduce the concept that will eventually end up being what like kind of saves the day. And it is that, but you're right in that it gives the War Doctor a chance to see his future selves in action, because that's really what that B plot is for, is just the War Doctor being able to see what he will become and deciding that maybe it's okay, maybe I will be able to live with this, and maybe it'll make me better. And so I think all that works really, really well. So is the blonde chick supposed to be like the daughter of the dude who hung out with Bay Arthur Doctor? Like, I'm
Yes.
just,
Yeah, so he's
Okay.
yeah, so
Okay.
the guy, the brigadier who was in a lot of these specials, that's meant to be his daughter.
Is that his
Okay, that's
actual
cool.
like daughter of the actress, or?
I don't think so, but it could be. I
Knowing the
don't know.
BBC, it would not surprise me.
I thought that was like kind of the appeal of her, but maybe I'm wrong.
But yeah, no, it's, I like a lot of the stuff with the Zygons. They have a fun, kind of silly sci-fi design. I am amused by the fact that they were just standing under those blankets for God knows how long.
Right?
It's very amusing to me. And like no one fucking checked, despite the fact that there's like rubble and like dust all over the ground. But whatever. Other than that, I thought they were pretty fun. But yeah.
There's a fun bit of trivia as well about those blankets, where that was the previous doctors, like Colin Baker, Peter Davison, and stuff. Those were standing under the blankets for that scene.
Oh my god, that's so funny.
Oh, really?
I didn't know that. So they are in it. Yay!
Yeah, that was the thing. They was like, we are in it. we were under a blanket as a Zygon, and you could just pretend that the Zygons transformed into the Doctor.
So is the old man at the end, is that like the fourth Doctor?
Yeah, that's Tom Baker.
He's the one with the scarf because the girl has
Yeah, before
Yeah.
David Tennant came along, he was the Doctor
Okay.
for people and stuff. And what I really like about the Tom Baker choice specifically, kind of going back to what we talked about with saying that 11 is the final like regeneration and stuff, is I love that Tom Baker comes back and immediately says no, that's bullshit. But because of the nature of who experienced these events, is always the Doctor who regenerated. Like the most recent incarnation of the Doctor is the only one who remembers it. The rest of them will forget. So Tom Baker's the only one who remembers this fully, which is another part of this that's so funny. Stephen Moffat's talked about this, where it's like, this is Doctor Who at its most mass appeal, big fun adventure, but it's also probably the most convoluted Doctor Who script ever written, because in what order does this take place? From whose POV is Day of the Doctor from?
Yeah, no, it is kind of a mess in that regard. I hadn't really picked up on that until this rewatch, but yeah, no, it's kind of all over the fucking place.
You don't notice it because it's fun and it's going around, which is, I think, kind of the ultimate argument. When people say stuff like Doctor Who's too impenetrable, or oh, this fiction is just you're not smart enough. If you're a good enough writer, no matter what bullshit you put on screen, and it makes no fucking sense when the events are meant to happen, if people are having a good time, no one's gonna fucking notice or care. Like, until like the second or third, like rewatches maybe, then it will start hitting. But I do think that is a good, like, Moffat gets a lot of shit for his scripts being more convoluted, and I think this is one where, like, legitimately it doesn't make any fucking sense in, like, how when does this take place. But I think it's really impressive that he manages to make it be still that mass appeal where you can show this to someone who only has a vague idea of Doctor Who, and they can still kind of follow along with it because it does a good job explaining everything as it goes. But to the Tom Baker point I was saying, so it does a great thing with 11 where it immediately sets up like, oh, maybe I'm gonna do this and go and find Gallifrey, and then I'll retire and stuff like that. And you have that booming, oh, I think you might, like, comes in. It's so good. And like he's really the only other Doctor you could have got to do this, because he's just got such that gravitas to him of like, that is the guy. That is, people were crying when he first showed up, like especially like older guys and stuff who had grown up with it, like, oh my fucking god. And that's, I think, a lot more real because it meant a lot for Tom Baker to come, because he'd never come back from one of these before.
Mm-hmm.
This is Tom Baker's first multi-Doctor special, which is hilarious and fucking kind of badass. Like, he waited till it was good to go. So like, that's really cool. But like, so the idea that the Doctor, even though he thinks he's done this last act, his birthday present, effectively, his 50th fucking anniversary present, is getting Tom Baker to come back and being like, Doctor Who never ends. Like, you're going to be having so many more adventures, and you may revisit a few familiar faces, and there may be some strange new ideas, but there is... Doctor Who ends by ensuring that the last canon Doctor that we see is Tom Baker, who can never play the Doctor again, therefore ensuring that no matter when Doctor Who gets cancelled or if they kill him off, they'll never ever be able to have them regenerate into Tom Baker. So Doctor Who has now achieved canon immortality because they'll never be able to show that regeneration. So it's fucking genius. It's such a fucking ballsy way of being like, the show isn't just gonna last another 50 years. This show's gonna this has become mythic now. You've earned it, Doctor Who. You've been through trials. You've got cancelled. You showed up in EastEnders, but now here is your reward. You have infinite possibilities left for you now. And like, as a writer and someone who enjoys storytelling and stuff like that, like the idea of characters as mythic and stuff, like, only other one who's pulled out such a fucking fuck yeah, this character look like will go forever like moment is Grant Morrison. So that is, I can't praise that moment enough in this episode. It's just a fucking, that's how you fucking do it, man. That's how you talk about an IP without glorifying the nature of IP, but glorifying the fact that it's a story worth telling. Love shit like that. Oh, it gets me so high.
No, it's so good. And like, it's so good that you kind of like forget some of the like basics. It does that thing where it's so good that you want to be with it, so you don't even think about it. Like, because I didn't have this till, that's probably like the 5th or 6th time I've watched this thing. I didn't have this till this rewatch, where I'm at the end there with Matt Smith giving his speech before he goes and stands amongst all the other doctors, and I'm like, who the fuck is he talking to? Like, it just, because it's not Clara, because like, Clara often asks me. So at that point, the Doctor's just straight up talking to the audience before he goes and stands amongst himself, which is so funny, because I watched some of the behind the scenes stuff for this, and I saw like the on-set shots of how they filmed that. And like, let's just all be, it's BBC. We can all just acknowledge this. They didn't have the budget to do what they clearly wanted to do, which is like the Lucasfilm thing. So it's just a really shitty Photoshop by the end of it, right? Like, we could all acknowledge that it's just a really shit Photoshop. It's so funny to see the on-set version, because it's like the best possible setup for how you could do it, because it's got like all the actors, like it's got actual physical actors there. They're all wearing the costume. They're all like pretty close to physically actually looking like the guy. That if you go in and did like digital face replacement the way like, you know, just deep fakes or the way like Disney did with Tarkin or whatever, it would probably look good. They even got like the motion tracking dots on their faces. And so the only conclusion I can come to is that they really actually tried to do it and make it look good, like the Disney Tarkin path and whatever. And then they did such a shit job at it that they decided a really bad Photoshop was a better option. Because it's likely. It's so blatantly like they were trying for something that they just could not achieve. So I'd be really curious if that shot exists somewhere accessible to the fan base. If that shot exists somewhere unaltered, just like the raw footage, basically. because nowadays, even with just your basic fucking deep fake stuff, I think it could look probably about 1 billion times better than that shitty fucking Photoshop. It's so funny how awful it's just terrible. But you love it. It's sold you on it so hard that like in the moment you don't really think of it. It's not till well after that you go, oh man, ooh. I do love Tom Baker's appearance in it. It is really, really. It is a great performance. You can tell he really like waited and tried to throw his weight around on that one, so to speak. I love he's still just as exaggerated and as much of a camera hog as Matt Smith tends to be. The fact that Tom Baker fucking steals the whole show at that point. It's like that shh, like that. Nah, that's my favorite part with the shh. Sorry, I'm just dying.
The best part about it is that fucking moment is the moment where he's like, or maybe you're me, and it's like, oh, nice to meet you. You're very nice. You're very welcome. That's improvised. Like Matt Smith and Tom Baker just did that on set. It fucking was so perfect.
So
Like
good.
they're just like, you could tell how giddy Matt Smith was to be able to do a scene next to Tom Baker. And I think that's really special. Outside of the stuff like that, though, I will say something else that just stands as like one of my favorite lines in fiction, quite honestly, because I think this one's just so fucking cool. Is I love, and the delivery of it by John Hurt's so good, but I love when John Hurt says, great men are forged in fire, is the privilege of lesser ones to light the flame. Like, that's just so fucking... God, I wish I could write something like that. That's so fucking good. Doctor Who always has moments like that, but like ever since I first watched it, that line specifically, as always, like it's great that it's a great line that is then immediately proved wrong. But like it's just in the moment, like that is such a
It's that lie the character needs to believe kind of vibe, you know?
yeah, and it's just I love that so much, and how John Hurt plays that. Like it as a McGann fanboy, I'm very much like should have been fucking McGann in the Time War, but that one line I think McGann couldn't have delivered as well as John Hurt, so I think that almost gets me to justify the War Doctor just for that line and delivery alone.
It's a fascinating needle thread of continuity where like I think everyone kind of universally agrees the War Doctor is a really weird and kind of bad idea, but when you like look at the circumstances and then seeing what was done with it is kind of just objectively like, yeah, no, it's actually it does kind of fucking rock though. And it is kind of interesting that, you know, when we get the little preview of what created the War Doctor, and how he starts as a young man and then ages into John Hurt apparently, is like, oh shit, this guy saw some stuff. He was the War Doctor for a long fucking time through the Time War. The Time War was not just a couple weeks or anything like that. It was an event. Is really fucking fascinating. What else with this one? So the Zygon stuff is cool and all. The effects for the change into the Zygon is fucking amazing. I think my favorite like visual in this is probably the Gallifreyan art, the 3D paintings. I thought that was just a really cool visual idea, and they sell it really well in this. One of the things visually that I am still pretty disappointed by in this one, I mean, it's one of those where it's not really the focus, but it is just like, oh, really? That was the Time War? That was the final battle of the Time War? Is just the, like, invasion of Gallifrey. It's just a bunch of, like, fucking Daleks firing lasers and Time Lords firing lasers and running away. That one will always sit with me as like a, oh man, Time War was cooler in my head.
Man, I don't know. I have this disconnect where I'm like, I'm sitting here And I'm just like, oh my god, these are like children in peril, and they're gonna die. This is like fucking serious and intense. And then these motherfuckers roll up and are like, exterminate. I can't.
Oh,
I
you don't
can't
like the
fucking do
Daleks?
it. My brain just can't handle it, man. I can't handle this serious subject matter, and then these doofy ass looking motherfuckers saying exterminate. Like, I'm just like,
Man, you would love
I
Third
can't.
Doctor stories so much.
I can't handle it, man. And I'm not. That's not a slight against the thing. That is what it is. It's just, as someone who is the most detached from this franchise, it hits me different. I don't know, man.
I mean, it's probably for the best that the Daleks aren't really the focus in this one. They're just kind of a presence because they were a presence in the Time War. I think it was a bit exciting to get the Zygons in their, like, as the monster of the week kind of threat for this one. Thought that was kind of cool.
What I'm kind of confused by is, like, and maybe you Doctor Who fans can tell me, if the original thing that he did wiped out the Daleks and the Time Lords, why are there still Daleks?
The Daleks never ever really die.
Like,
Yeah,
that's
so,
what
like,
all
the-
of the Eccleston and Tennant stuff is about, is the Daleks just keep finding ways to survive because they're really fucking good at it.
Yeah, I do remember that. I was just wondering if there was like it's been a minute, so I just couldn't remember if there was like a reason that they survived and the Time Lords didn't.
Something that is
Yeah.
kind of cool, though, about the Daleks' relationship to the Doctor in this moment is that before this, the last appearance, I think it was the last appearance of the Daleks, was when, in Asylum of the Daleks, when Matt Smith and Clara erase their memory of the Doctor. They don't know who he is anymore. And so this kind of brings them back to status quo, if I remember right.
No, I think the Daleks the Daleks in this are essentially past Daleks as far as Matt Smith and David Tennant are concerned.
Well, that's true.
They are
Okay.
the Daleks
So
of
they
the
have-
Time
They
Lord.
haven't fixed that yet, though.
No, I think every time Stephen Moffat touched the Daleks, he immediately contradicts it the next time he touches the Daleks because he just really did not have a voice for them in the
Yeah,
same
because it
way
was a really
Davies
big
did.
deal at the end of Asylum when it turns out Clara is a Dalek and she erases the knowledge of the Doctor from their cloud service, basically.
Mhm.
And then when Smith transports back into the base, they're like, "Oh, the fuck is he? How did he get in here?" And they're all just yelling "Doctor Who" before he leaves dramatically.
Yeah, because they know who he is by the time we get to Capaldi again. I don't know if that's ever, like, officially addressed.
No,
feel
they
like it's
just he
copied
just
somewhere.
it just
It just gets
it's like
abandoned.
the same. It's the same deal as the big paradigm, like multicolored Daleks. It's just Moffat's
Oh yeah, they
like,
don't go anywhere.
I don't really know what I was doing there. Let's just pretend I didn't do that. That's on me. For like he said pretty blatantly, just like yeah, kind of messed up there. So don't worry, ignore it.
Well, I mean, like, it's so funny because that whole season he's like, I'm gonna erase myself because I've gotten too big. And then it's just like, immediately, like, right away they go, we could figure out who you were by looking at the hole you've left. Oops. And that's pretty much the end of it. That whole season plot thread just kind of fizzles out real quick. But no, it's one of those things. It's whatever. I do like the Daleks in this. The only time we've ever seen the Time War proper on screen, the battles of the Time War, and it is just laser fights. I was like, oh man, I'm gonna pull an Alfie. They should have gone harder.
Yeah, boy. Now you're talking my language.
Like T2, the future from T2 vibes.
Yeah, and it should be, like, way more fucking weird than that. Like, and again, you don't need to focus on it. It's just, if you're going to show the battle anyway, just making notes of, it's more than just lasers. Like, because the idea I had is like, alright, so how the fuck do the Time Lords fight a battle? Like, do they just shoot you, or do they shoot you with something that, like, fucking, turns you into a baby? Like, what the fuck? What is that like? It could just be fucking fascinating visual flair to show on screen, because it's not like that. It's not like you don't see stuff happening, because you do. It's just they picked, like, really bland stuff to show, so I was kind of hoping, just for more in the grand scheme of things. I really wish that, I need to go back and do the Day of the Doctor, the special edition, where I fix the shot at the end and we make the whole Gallifrey invasion scene a lot fucking weirder. Needs to be trippy. Needs to be fucking weird. That's all I got on that. No one else seems to care for this point, so we'll move on.
No, I'm with you. It's one of those things where it's same with the Zygons. Why I think it works from a script standpoint is you've got 45 minutes and there's a lot of shit to cover. And the most exciting thing that everyone wants to see here is the Doctors meeting each other and the Doctors being back, and nothing you're ever going to do is going to be cooler than that. So trying to, in the best case scenario, is going to make it feel a little bit muddled, where people are going to be like, now I just wish we got a Time War episode that could have explored that little glimpse we see much more, because it looks so cool. Or people will be like, oh man, I wish the Doctor got to have more time, because they had to explain what was happening with the fucking weird shit on Gallifrey that took 10 minutes because it was fucking with reality and timelines and shit. Like, and then if the Zygons had been a bigger, like, more impressive villain, you'd have to dedicate more time to them. And so, like, I feel like it's a really tough script to circle with what gets the moments, because contrary to many things Alfie says is, yes, you can go bigger with everything, but if everything is going big, then nothing's big. Like, you need to have those small. You need to have those smaller things. I'm gonna
fucking clip that, and I'm gonna play it for you so many times you don't even understand.
Yeah, sure. But like, it's that thing where you gotta have the contrast. You gotta build up to the hype, and then you have the big hype, and you don't want to undersell stuff the Doctor's going to be doing, because if you're seeing the Time War, it's this fucking insane shit. And you got the Zygon thing happening. Well, it's not necessarily. If it's more middle of the road to the Zygon stuff, and you can excuse it of being like, they've used all the crazy fucking weapons, and the Daleks have exhausted all their. So they're just reduced to this, where it's just fucking guns sieging the capital because they've got nothing. They've tried all their bullshit, and this is just the last day of Gallifrey, where they are reduced to the same as every other war culture, where it's just guns. That, I think, can work. I don't like it as much, but you can justify it to that extent a little bit, if I play Headcanon Guru. But yeah, it's not as cool as you ever want it to be, but...
I mean, I think that's because, like, Davies does a really good job of, like, creating hype, but just... Davies 100% is into edging. I will never not believe that, because... That's just all his era is. It's just I saw the Nightmare Child, the Never King and his army of warrants. Like, it's just fucking always the hypest, coolest, most vague sounding shit. And you never actually see it, because all the power is just, it's the J.J. Abrams thing. It's the mystery box, Like, the hype is in the not knowing, and so then to finally see it, and it's just like, lasers. And there's battle Daleks that fly primarily, and it's like, oh.
I guess you guys just have more faith in the BBC than I do, because honestly, I thought that was the BBC going hard, and that's all they could afford.
Oh, that's definitely it. That's definitely it. Which is kind of why Davies was a bit smarter, because Davies never showed anything from the time. Like, you get little glimpses of people. He's never showing the battles, because he's smart enough to be like, yeah, it's gonna look fucking stupid if we do this. Like, I
feel like the most you could get away with is like, it is sundown in the sand and people are tired, and if you try to do anything more than that, you're gonna go over budget.
Yeah, pretty much. So Moffat was kind of in a place where you can't not show it a little bit, but like, this is legitimately all they fucking could probably get at. Like, there's a reason why Doctor Who doesn't go to that many alien planets that you see the outside of. There's a reason why you don't see the fucking crazy CGI. Like, Neil Gaiman was writing the Doctor's Wife episode, and the budget thing that he got surprised about is he was writing in too many space shots of the TARDIS, and Stephen Moffat had to pull him away and be like, if we filmed your script as you currently put it, you'd bankrupt us. Just because of how many outside CGI shots of the TARDIS. You'd be like, but It's the shot of the. That can't be that much, surely. He's like, you don't understand, Neil. We are poor. So, like, it's one of those things where it's lame and not as. It's just bootleg Star Wars and not as cool as Star Wars. And that's always, whenever Doctor Who tries to be Star Wars or Star Trek, it always looks like the fucking tinfoil paper cousin. Its best moments are when it is just working on the big ideas and the time travel and the craziness that you get from just having the Doctor talk about it epically. Because then you don't have to worry about budget, you just worry about performance and character, which is the lesson a lot of fan film things should do, and I guess the lesson that even Doctor Who writers who know that lesson, like Moffat, still kind of trip over now and again. So it's definitely an interesting, even at its biggest and most successful and most wide appeal, Doctor Who's always gonna look a little cheap and shit.
I wouldn't have it any other way. Well,
Really wouldn't though, right?
Yeah.
If Doctor Who got like that fucking J.J. Abrams lens flare level fucking...
Oh, J.J. Abrams.
It would be wrong.
Let J.J. Abrams direct Doctor Who. Let him do it, just so he has all three, man.
It would just be
I'm so
weird.
here for Michael Bay's Doctor Who, where every TARDIS shot's a drone shot, and every companion not only wants to fuck the Doctor, but the Doctor has fucked them. Here for it.
Yeah, no, I'm down.
Daleks say exterminate, and they literally exterminate a planet they actually make good. It'd be great.
I don't know. You're probably right. All right. So, is there anything else we want to talk about with this one? Does anyone have any like lingering thoughts or things they want to bring up before we start wrapping up here?
I guess my one last little thing, because I don't want to... We harped on the Time War stuff quite a bit, and we talked about the Doctor's relationships to each other a lot. One thing I do want to mention, because we just kind of brushed over it, is I really do like Clara. I think she's a really, really good companion, and I think she gets a lot better when you get to Capaldi with 12. But I like her function in this, and I like how it resolves with all of the Doctors spinning their TARDISes around, because in the episode before this, it turns out that she's actually been... She enters the Doctor's timeline, and she meets all of the previous incarnations and like even talks to the first Doctor and convinces him to get this specific TARDIS. So she's kind of been there with them all the way through. And then you get to this episode, and it's not her just meeting them individually, but all of them coming together in the same spot, which is a fun send-off. And again, I feel like it's a proper finale now that you're recontextualizing and saying that Matt Smith is the last Doctor of this regeneration.
Which
Also,
is just
I
a
love
little
that our
undercut
first shot-
by Capaldi showing up.
Well, yeah, and I do like that our first shot of Capaldi, and he and I have talked about this before, is just the angry eyebrows. And it's just a forehead shot of this man with the angriest eyes I have ever seen.
Yeah, no, it's...
I swear to God, man. Speaking of just hype moments, of like people say the fucking like Avengers assemble like portals, and nothing's gonna get you fucking as much as all 13. Oh, fuck! What a cool way to do that shit. That was the first time they ever like. That's so fucking badass. What Shadley move, Doctor Who.
It's a good fucking moment. I remember hearing Moffat talk about that. He's like, so people are wondering if he's going to be a more intense Doctor. And I put him on screen for 10 seconds. It's just like, boy, I wonder.
So cool. Like, it's just... and it makes me happy as well because, like... You know, Steve, you've been talking about how, like, 11 being the final regeneration, like, fits his art really well. It's like, I'm always still on the... Again, my own headcanon, I always like to maybe think of Capaldi as the real last of the 13 regenerate, and this being like these 13 Doctors being the ones that are the fight, like this being an arc of the Doctor, and then Jodie's like a new arc, I think is a much cleaner breaking point. Like, I'm just like, this is the first 50 years of Doctor Who here. And then we get fucking Jodie, which is like the next 50 years of Doctor Who and stuff.
No,
So
I 100% agree with you. It's just the War Doctor retcon makes that not the case anymore. Like if we
No,
if we
but
had
like I like
Eccleston
to
back, we
to
could've
lie
fixed
to
it.
myself, Steve, is what I'm saying.
It's as much as the War Doctor performance stuff is good. I do still kind of fundamentally think that the idea of the War Doctor is executed as best as it possibly can, but it's still a bad idea.
Yep. I don't think anyone would want to have been put in that position.
Yeah.
But there's just nothing
I'm
to be
sure.
done about it.
Obviously, I'm not Moffat. I wasn't writing 3 fucking TV shows at the same time, but I do feel like they probably could have come up with something better than the War Doctor. But that's just me.
Like, yes, but under the constraints, like, it's not just the constraints of
but
not
it goes
getting the
back to what you were
actors you
saying.
want. It's like the constraints of, well, you can't use Paul McGann. We don't want any classic doctors. And so I don't know how the fuck he made the last scene where all 13 show up. Like, I don't know how he got that, like, through. If that's maybe just, like, a last little edit that got sneaked in or some shit. Like, I'm honestly shocked that made the cut. Because BBC is like, just ashamed of Classic Who. And, as we've discovered throughout this, they probably should be. But, like, it is kind of just... It is just the case, that, like, you just end up with this kind of weird fucking mishmash of a thing. Matt, what did you think of the all 13 moment? What did that hit for you? Was that kind of hype at all?
I thought that was pretty fucking hype. I'm not gonna lie. I was sitting here, I'm like watching it, and I'm like, oh shit, they got all the other. Oh shit, that's Peter Capaldi's eyes. What the fuck, man? No, I like, literally, like I'm sitting, like, it worked on me. I thought it was pretty fucking cool and hype, mostly because like I was not expecting that at all, even remotely. So no, I thought it was cool. I thought it was fucking hype. I mean, they're taking that, like, that idea they had to get out of the cell, taking that to the highest possible extreme of like, no, we started this calculation back at fucking Doctor 1, and we're going all the way to the Doctor that you haven't even met yet. I just think it's really cool. It's very much that, just going the biggest that they could go for what they were doing, and I thought it was pretty hype.
Yeah, I like how it's seated.
Capaldi, I thought it was hype.
Yeah, I like the way that it's seated and set up. The Chekhov's sonic screwdriver as the writing
Chekhov's calculation.
Yeah, as the writing term is known, Chekhov's sonic screwdriver. I thought that was quite good. If I could have gotten more, I would have liked to see, like, it's that double-edged sword of the moment of they all just show up is so fucking hyped that you don't want to take that away, but at the same time you're like, wait, how has he been doing it for all this time? Where's the scene where, like, fucking 11, 12 and the War Doctor go back to fucking Hartnell and be like, hey, we need to start a calculation on your TARDIS. Who the fuck are you guys? What are you doing in my house? I'm an old man and I'm vaguely racist. So I do kind of like, that's a big finish scene right there. That's what we need. Sorry, I'm dying. So otherwise, anything else? Any other lingering thoughts? No? Okay. We'll go ahead and go on to ratings then. I'll go first. So I do legitimately like this one. It's a thing that I do have problems with, but I do still overall enjoy. I think it is a really fun time and genuinely good, and not just like resting on its laurels the way the Five Doctors does and stuff. So I'll give this 4 out of 5 unlocked cell doors.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I really enjoyed this. I thought it was a lot of fun. There were things about it that I'm sure were meant to more heavily tie into the larger context of what was going on with Matt Smith's Doctor, and some of the more Easter eggy and referencey stuff I just kind of had to roll with. But even with all that aside, we actually get the Doctors having fun playing off of each other. We get a lot of really fun, neat, clever time travel-y sci-fi stuff, like the Zygons plopping down and then waiting until a planet is worth their time to take over, which I think is cool. So no, I enjoyed this. I'd give it 4 out of 5 aliens standing under bed sheets for like several hours.
Yeah, I don't know why they waited so long. Like, the door got opened pretty damn quick. It is so funny how Moffat just has, like, his fucking playbook of writing tricks. because he does, from like the very first episode of Doctor Who he writes with Chris Eccleston, he does that exact fucking trick. It's so amusing to me. Anyway, Steve?
Yeah, I really like this one. I think it's a really good episode. I like it as part of that sort of final trilogy. It's a multi-doctor story where there are multiple doctors and they actually speak to each other. That immediately makes it like a 3. So the fact that it's legitimately good is honestly kind of a shock and kind of a surprise. So I'm happy about that. I'll go ahead and give this 4 out of 5 waving around sonic screwdrivers like they're water pistols.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's good shit. It's good shit.
Yeah, basically just piggybacking everything else. This was a good one. This is something that is a miracle it got made. It's a miracle it's as good as it is. So, very strong testament to Doctor Who. It's kind of everything great about Doctor Who and everything kind of bad about Doctor Who, and it's mad, bonkers, and kind of wonderful and one of a kind. Is truly nothing else like this show. So it's why, as a concept, I always do love it and think it's one of the best ones ever. So, all of that, I'll give it 4 out of 5. Ooh, the round things. What are the round things? I have no idea. Like, miss the round things too, buddies. What? No one knows what they are, but they just need.
It's just
I like
a
their
fucking
round
vibe,
things.
man. No one asks what wallpaper is. No one asks what wall texture is. Look at your wall right now. Does it have a texture or is it just a flat surface? If it has a texture, why?
The round things, man.
Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. Well, next week we'll finally conclude our look at the live-action multi-doctor stories with Twice Upon a Time. And then after that, we'll be doing the audio multi-doctor stories. And then after that, we'll do the comic crossovers. And then after that, we'll read my fan fictions. Just kidding.
I would be
Maybe.
interested in that last one. I'd be interested in those last ones. I want to see those.
Thanks, I think? Question mark?
I need to know what I need to know what the ships are. Which versions of the Doctors are getting shipped together? I need to know.
It's definitely 2 and 1 because fucking 1 shows up in 2's TARDIS and he's like, "I shall come back," and yeah, that's what that's gonna be like.
Oh, good. Looking forward to it.
Anyway, all right. So until next time, I'm the philosopher.
I'm the Doctor Who erotica lover.
I am the champion of war.
And I am the Matt Smith stan.
There we go. And we are your geeky gentlemen, and we will be discussing things.
Dun, da, da, dun, da, dun, da, da, ooh.